And we're back. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live on Sirius XM, channel 84, the ESPNU station. We are streaming on YouTube. If you are over there right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in the chat, ask us a question. We will be answering them during the breaks. We had to cut out of our Kentucky segment to get Ed on, but I do want to ask you guys this real quick before we have to go to our next break. Kentucky is playing without their starting backcourt right now. They came from behind to beat an Alabama team that threw their best punch at Kentucky on Saturday. Tonight, they were down by 10 in the second half, and they came back to beat LSU at home. Now, neither Alabama or LSU are great teams, right? But those are two tournament teams. They're going to be teams that are seated in the top 8, and Kentucky beat them without their starting backcourt. Arch, what does this say about Kentucky? What does this say about Coach Cal? How difficult is that to do?
It's very difficult to do when, number one, they're not playing a ton of players. So it's not as if two guys go out and, hey, you just put two guys in the game that are regulars. You know, Mintz now having to play the point guard slot almost for 40 minutes. They slide in a freshman, Bryce Hopkins, tonight. He gets 13 playing the 3 spot for him. It just shows to me, and I think Sean would probably agree, Kentucky has a real toughness about them. I mean, they really do. Their players compete, and regardless of who's in the game, you know, missing 2 guards, they defend. And they have Oscar inside rebounding the ball. And if you defend and rebound, to me, that's their recipe. Then you add in the talent and all their other guys, the offense can kind of, you know, crank it up on you. But they won these last 2 games out of pure grit and toughness. Guys are playing some extended minutes, but when you look at it, Oscar had 17 points and 16 rebounds tonight. Their backcourt got 26 between them, and they held, you know, LSU to 36% from the floor. And they won the rebounding battle 36-24 plus 12 on the glass. And you're going to win a lot of games doing that, but you got to give him credit, man. He's got those guys locked in, and they are playing hard. They're competing. And Cal's done as good a job as anybody in the country with his team. There's probably not a team that's improved as much as Kentucky throughout the course of the year. And they've been as impressive as anybody here in the last month.
I mean, they won 9 games a year ago. They completely resurrected their roster for the first time maybe in his tenure at Kentucky. He built his roster a completely different way. We were talking earlier, Rob, about the age of the players that were in tonight's game that played for Kentucky. He now has that blend of experience with the young talent. And with that experience, I think it's taken them to another level. You know, it's interesting. If you compare all of his teams at Kentucky, and Lord knows he's had some great ones, this might be one of his overall best offensive teams. I mean, right now, I don't think you can really capture for everybody that he's playing without his starting backcourt. And you can make the argument that it's the heart and soul of his team. I mean, those 2 guys, what they combine to do and how they make their offense go, neither one is playing, and they're still winning inside the SEC right now against 2, not only tournament teams in Alabama and LSU, but Alabama and LSU can win in March. They can advance in the tournament. So you just think about that. But interesting stat. Right now, they're number 2 in America in offensive rebounding, number 2. Doesn't feel that way because they're so skilled. Like, they're so skilled, and it's almost like everybody's pointing towards that being the difference between this year's Kentucky, but yet they're still number 2 in America in offensive rebounding. And Rob, when you're number 2 in America in offensive rebounding, usually you shoot a ton of free throws. They shoot like 291 most free throws in America. So, like, if you'd say, what does that mean? When they get the offensive rebound, they dunk the ball. They score. Like, this isn't like a offensive rebound, pump fake, 2 guys tackle you. This is a guy like Oscar, and Arch has talked about it all year. He is so different. He gets that offensive rebound and goes up, and it's a finish. But they combine toughness, skill, depth, experience. They can do it inside. They're really good in transition. And right now they're a top 5 team in offensive efficiency in the country. And they're in a fun team to watch play. I know, like, you always, as a coach, say, what team would you not want to see in your bracket on Selection Sunday? I would not want to see Kentucky in my bracket.
Yeah. I'd say this, a fully healthy Kentucky team entering the tournament, I will pick them to go to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And if you said, what's the difference in missing two guards right now? If you said, hey, you could sit Wheeler and Ty, you got to sit those two, or you got to sit Oscar tonight versus LSU. You can have the two guards or you can have Oscar. I'd sit the two guards and have Oscar. That's how important he is to what's going on. If Oscar gets in foul trouble or Oscar, knock on wood, isn't available, Kentucky have a hard time advancing past the first round in the tournament. That's how valuable he is to their team.
And I think like Kentucky is a smart basketball team. They've always had a great coach, but you can only make 18-year-old and 19-year-old really talented players, so adept at everything you need to in the game in 9 months, 6 months. And, it's like, it's always been like, sometimes they had to win in spite of their inexperience in the past. They now have experience and they are smart. They can win a lot of different ways, like time, score, situations. They seem to make the clever right play. And I'm not even talking about their defense. I just think that their offense is at another level.
Yeah, one thing I do think is worth noting with them is that if you look at teams like Gonzaga and you look at teams like Villanova and you look at some of these other great programs, they'll bring in touted freshmen and let them kind of sit on the bench for a year. Nolan Hickman and Hunter Salas aren't really doing all that much for Gonzaga right now. When they made it to the Final Four in 2017, Zach, whatever his name is, the guy that ended up going top 10, he didn't really do much for him in the front court the entire season. And this year, you look at some of these freshmen, Damian Collins, Bryce Hopkins, these guys aren't really doing all that much this season, but when they're called upon, they're ready when they come in because they're not being forced into playing too many minutes early on, right? Does that make sense?
No,
You're kind of letting them learn a little bit.
It's a complete opposite of what they asked their freshmen to do a year ago. They asked their freshmen to be great in an unthinkable situation of not having summer school, not having all the normal lead up time. And those guys had to learn their licks through the course of the year, and this year's a lot different. Think about this. They had their two backcourt out. So Mintz and Grady are their two guys that are going to play primary ball handlers. Kelvin Grady is a 2,000 point scorer in college, and Mintz is a 6-year senior who started his career off at Creighton in the Big East. I mean, that's a nice luxury to have as your third and fourth wheel, so to speak, when Ty and Wheeler aren't out there handling the ball. So they got a great blend. They got great role distribution. And, it's Sean's point tonight against LSU, who arguably all season has been statistically one of the best defenses in the country. Without those two guys tonight, they scored 48 points in the second half.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some teams that are really good that if your starting backcourt was ineligible for the game, you may not score 50 points or 60 points. And everybody would understand, back up my point. If you look at Kentucky in only SEC play, they're so far superior as the number one offensive team in the SEC over Auburn. It really isn't close. And yet right now in the SEC, and I think some of it is Kentucky's injuries, they're the fifth best defensive team. So it shows you how overwhelming their offense is in conference play. And I think it's exciting. If I were a Kentucky fan, man, you just keep your fingers crossed that you can enter March Madness as healthy as you can be, because if you put it all together and, you have a confident group, I mean, they can make a big run. And I think their experience and their offense set them apart right now.
I think that the tournament committee, and we'll see how the next 2.5 weeks go, they should be a 1 seed over Kansas. And I know Kansas is going to win the Big 12, probably outright, which means that, they should be a 1 seed. But in watching Kentucky play them and now watching Kentucky move through the season, if Kentucky's healthy, they're a 1 seed. Now, maybe it's not a big difference, but maybe it is a big difference in who they draw as the 2 seed or who they would draw as the 1 seed. But Kentucky right now can play for a 1 seed. I mean, I don't know if they'll be able to run the table with these guys out or whatnot, but in my opinion, Kentucky is a 1-seeded team. They're a team right now that's been trending the right direction for a long time.
And Rob, you brought it up, and I think it's really a great point you made. I think everybody has been captivated by the Auburn story, and I understand based on where they were a year ago as well. I mean, they self-imposed, and even if they didn't self-impose, They were not in the tournament a year ago, and they added a lot of different players. I mean, that weren't even on Auburn's team last year, and now they're Auburn's best players this year. And Bruce Pearl is an excellent coach, but like, why is he different than Calipari? Why would he be put in a different category than John Calipari when you consider where Kentucky would have been a year ago, the injuries that they've had to overcome, and where they're playing and how well they're playing right now? I mean, you said it in the Coach of the Year conversation. It's worth pointing out that Kentucky's head coach and what he's done deserves to be in that same conversation. It's just facts. I mean, it's black and white. There's no emotion to it. It's not that like he has the pick of the litter and nobody else does. It's what Kentucky has become this year is really exciting. It's fun to watch.
I think at the end of the day, as crazy as this sounds, I don't know. Auburn has 3 games left. They're at Tennessee, at Mississippi State, and South Carolina. The game at Tennessee is going to be an absolute bear for them. Kentucky is in a similar situation with their schedule with 3 left, and they're at Arkansas, which will be equally a bear this weekend. But they have Mississippi at home and at Florida. I can make the case, depending on how these next couple, Kentucky may win the SEC outright over Auburn, as crazy as all that sounds. I mean, they may win the league outright with the remaining 3 games. If they do that, Kentucky should be the 1 seed.
Yeah, they have to win at Arkansas, which is going to be a difficult thing to do. But